All right. Peter, can you hear me?
I can. How you doing?
Good. How are you? It every time when I start a space and and the music playing, whatever, I get knocked out my own space, and then I gotta reconnect, come back in and reconnect for some reason.
Are you using a PC or laptop, or are you using your phone for this?
I'm using my phone.
That's weird.
Yeah, it does that every time. So I don't know. I just want to make sure it's not messing up the audio. So hi, lovely. Hi, Carrie. I guess we're wait for for more people to mosey on in. So
Hi,
the judge is not. I think people probably thought he was coming on tonight, and he's not. But we're going to talk about it Monday live on YouTube, and of course, I'm pretty sure to come up on his X Space on Tuesday. However, I got I talked to him about it, and he he gave me a quick legal summary to use tonight. And of course, he's going to break it all down in details Monday and Tuesday because he's not doing no goddamn social media or media today. However, this space, I want to talk about Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. What happened? What led up to it? And how the media, especially on X, particularly coming from white people, painted this black boy as a low down criminal. Yes, he did something. I am. He did something horrendous. And taking a life is not good. It's not good at all. So,
To push back, Dana, and I like to reserve judgment, and I have a criminal defense attorney's hat that I like to wear because that's what I wanted to be at one point in time. You have to also look at he could be justified in his actions, and so we have to reserve judgment until we see and have all the facts to ascertain, and then see how the trial goes. Right? He's entitled to the presumption of innocence in our system, and that's what
oh
we
yeah,
should
of
afford him.
course, right. So that's why the bell thing was the bell was too high. When I read it, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This is just too high. And then when I spoke to the judge, he was like, that's ridiculous. It's too high, and it needs to go down. And he was like, that's stupid and ridiculous. But speaking to the judge, and I was telling the judge what happened because he really didn't hear about it. He was like, it's a felony murder, not no capital murder. He was like felony murder at best, but it was self defense. So because
And he
he,
said it was felony murder because it was done in the commission of another crime that was taking place. Is that correct?
yes, because of robbery. So he was defending his property. That's i.e. the self defense. So because it was a crime of robbery taking place, and this young man was defending himself, it is self-defense, and at best it should be felony murder, and nowhere should it be $1 million for the bond. And then I read the quote from the Carmelo Anthony's attorney saying he's not giving out any statements, but his main focus right now is to speak to his client and to get that bail down because that's ridiculous. $1 million. He doesn't have any priors, never been arrested, never been in prison, and you slap $1 million on it. And the judge was like, they're starting to, they slap on these high bells as punishment for what the individual did. But he was like, legally, that is not right. And it's unlawful, unfortunately. And of course, when we talk about it on Monday and Tuesday, because on the phone, he went into the Diddy situation. He was like, even with the Diddy situation, that was just horrendous. And, you know, um, that whole spectacle, it was just BS. So we talk about due process here. Due process. So, but tonight's space, I'm sorry if you're not a lawyer, if you're not a judge, you could give your opinion. So this is not the space to be talking about legal shit if you're not a legal expert. But I do want to talk about what happened, what led up to it, the after effects, and why in the hell people on X and social media, but particularly on X, why is it that, I'm sorry, white people are quick to sit up here and paint a black boy and a black girl in this situation, and they make it into a race thing. They make it into a race thing. And I do stand with Tariq Nasheed is saying the fact is that, okay, y'all motherfuckers wasn't saying this about Daniel Penny. Y'all wasn't saying this about Kyle Rittenhouse. Same goddamn thing with Kyle Rittenhouse. Same thing with Daniel Penny, self-defense. So what's the difference now? And it's like you painted this boy, oh, putting up pictures with him holding a gun and his middle finger up, but then want to put the two twins like they're all golden angels. But then you come to find out there are photos of them acting a fool too. So what is really going on with teenagers nowadays? So I want to have this discussion. I want to do it under 2 hours, no more than 2 hours, because I have my premiere of my first panel dropping at 9 p.m. on the Real Dana. And we're going to be talking about, should white South Africans be allowed here in the United States to benefit from the Civil Rights Act? So, yeah. But anyway, I want to open up the floor. Go ahead, Peter. And I'll go to Carrie, Lovely, and Lloyd. Hello, Lloyd. And please share out this space, like this
Hey,
space.
Dana, I already tweeted it.
Thank you. And shout out to everybody that's listening on YouTube. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I appreciate for everybody tuning in. Hope you're having a great weekend. I've been involved in a few spaces in regards to this topic and sort of started digging into the aspect that the defense would be able to bring up as far as this being self-defense in conjunction with stand your ground. Texas does give options related to protection of personal property as well as other individuals as well, and as well as yourself, obviously. And then went into the standards of proportionality and reasonableness, which I think we could bring into the fold here when we have our conversation. So I want to welcome everybody who's in the space and who came. I'm glad you guys are here. Please like, retweet, and bookmark the space so we can push out the algorithm, get more speakers in here, and have a more well-rounded conversation. So I will yield my mic, and I want to welcome the people that are on the panel already and the speakers, Lovely, Lloyd, and Carrie. And I'd like to begin, if we can, with Lloyd, then we'll go to Carrie, and then we'll go to Lovely. So Lloyd, you have the floor.
Okay, so hi everybody. Shout out to everybody. Thanks, Dana, for holding the space. Um, I would ask Dana, and Peter, you can weigh in because you know the whole Rutgers thing. Um, is why are we saying self-defense and not applying stand your ground? Because they're two different bars legally. So clearly, this situation, and I wasn't there, so I didn't see it, but from everything I have read, and I've been not reading what I see on social media, I've been reading the mainstream media accounts. Everything says that this is a stand your ground case. And so that's one question I would ask you to ask the judge, Dana. And then I would ask him, why wouldn't his defense attorney, Mr. Waypole, why wouldn't he go immediately Monday morning, put in a motion to have the charges dismissed? Because if stand your ground applies here, he didn't commit a crime. Why is he charged?
Because somebody died. And it was by the hands of the 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony. So you have to arrest. That's
No, you don't have to
why
arrest.
don't you?
What you can do, because you can investigate and
You still
find
have
the
to arrest.
no, you
So if
don't.
that's the
No,
case,
no,
if that's the case, I don't know where you get this from to where you can't. Because if that's the case, I could come and I could run around here and use violence against someone and use violence against that person, and then you think the cops are not going to arrest me, and then the investigation, it doesn't work. Our criminal justice system does not work that way. Sorry. Well, you made
well,
the way. Let me finish
hold
because
on.
you asked the question. You made this agree,
Right.
but if somebody do you harm, whether shoot, stab,
Mhm,
or whatever, right? And you did
mhm,
it to that individual, especially if that individual died. That individual don't even have to die, but if that individual
mhm,
died, it wasn't like you broke into
mhm.
that person's home. But even if you did break into that person's home and and you end up killing that person and you stand your ground, you still have to be put in handcuffs by in the cop car and taken down to the precinct and booked. Now the charges may be dropped, but you will get arrested.
Okay, Dana, you are okay. I see the 100%, Peter. However, just because you are put in the back of a police car, even if you are put in handcuffs, does not mean you are under
If
arrest.
they
It means
read you
you at
your
that.
if they
Dana,
read
please
you
let me
your
finish. Let me
rights,
finish.
you're under arrest.
Dana, but the point is, they don't have to
Why don't
arrest you.
they?
They can. I'm going to tell you. They can detain you.
For what?
Because you are a person of interest.
Of what? No, no,
And
no,
what
no, no,
appears,
no, no, no,
Dana,
no,
let
no,
me
no,
finish.
no,
Dana.
no. Person of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Person of interest is me. They don't know who did it, but you may be one of the suspects. He did it. He said he did it, and he said it was self-defense.
Peter,
So
Peter, can you jump in here? Peter, can
otherwise,
you jump in here?
he is arrested.
Yeah,
That's why
Peter,
he is
can you
Lloyd,
jump in?
Lloyd, listen. That is why he has a
Mm-hmm.
bell. So but the bell is just set too damn high. But a bell is set, you bail out, and then you proceed with your legal process, with your case and with the investigation. But you will be arrested because you took a knife, you stabbed someone, that person died. You're going to get
yeah, Lloyd,
arrested. You're going to get a bell, and then we'll figure it out.
yeah, Dana, if I could jump in, Lloyd. So I practice martial arts, and my teacher's former law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
26 years, and he tells everybody
Mm-hmm.
in the class, if you do serious physical bodily injury to somebody, I don't care, it could be
Mm-hmm.
as little as you snapping their knee in half with a kick that you placed, and they're not able to walk. When the police come,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get arrested. You're going to get processed and taken down to the station because of the serious bodily injury that happened to the other individual. Now, the prosecution team or the prosecutor or the DA will determine whether if there is enough evidence after he reviews from what the police investigation is, whether to present this to a grand jury or not. And in this case, this is going to go to a grand jury. The same as Daniel Penny, the same as there was another individual who had an issue in New York. He stabbed somebody on the train. It went to the grand jury. The grand jury chose not to indict. What's happening now is he's going through that process. I don't even know, I haven't looked it up yet, but if he's even been arraigned, right, which is a formal reading of the charges. So at this stage in the process, he's been arrested. The judge has set a bail, the assignment judge that this has went to. He now is challenging the bail, saying that it is ridiculously high.
Let
He's
me
going to
read
try
the
to probably
quote from the attorney. It says the attorney for Carmelo Anthony, the 17-year-old accused of murdering football star Austin Metcalf at a Texas track meet, insists he doesn't have any reason to think the killing wasn't in self-defense and will request the teen's bond be lowered from $1 million. So Anthony has been hauled up at the Collin County Jail on the 7-digit bond since he was charged with fatal stabbing of Metcalf, who's also 17, after briefly meeting with the teenager. So yeah, so the attorney is saying his number one priority is to get that bond lowered and get him bailed out.
And Dana, let me just add in the nature of the high bail. A lot of times can be due to the charges. They charged him with first-degree murder, which means with malice aforethought, meaning that he planned and it was premeditated in his actions. He planned it and he intended for the result, the death, to occur. And so that is why that bail is the way it is as well. They do that They do that a lot of times in the federal system as well. They make a bail package $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, $5
Yeah,
million
but see, when I spoke to the judge, he said that he's starting to see in the criminal justice system, these judges, they're giving these astronomical bells as also like a form of punishment. They're just slapping the highest amount that they could without, and that's not fair due process. Basically, like,
That is the point I'm
wait, Lloyd,
making.
can you wait? I'm
That is
sorry, Lloyd,
exactly the
Lloyd,
point I'm
Lloyd, Lloyd.
making.
Can you just mute up for 1 second? 1 second. And so, Wellpole, I guess that's the name of his attorney, also confirmed he has requested a hearing next week to lower Anthony's bond, which could raise the chances of his pretrial release. So there's still a lot of information coming in. I know other people probably have more information than others. So go ahead, Lloyd.
So that's exactly the point that I'm making. The fact that they charged him, it wasn't the police that charged him, it was the prosecutor. And based on the evidence that has been put out in the public, witness statements and all of that stuff, People Magazine, New York Times, blah, 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 all of them have said that was not a murder. It was self-defense. However, one of the arguments under self-defense is stand your ground. Not all states have stand your ground. The difference between the two is it's self-defense, you have a duty to retreat. If you can get away, then you shouldn't kill the person. Don't kill the person if you can get away. Understand the stand your ground doctrine. You do not have that duty to retreat. You simply have to have a reasonable belief that your property, your body, your life, whatever you want to say, was at risk, was in danger.
So when you
And
did,
that's
didn't you
it.
just answer
If
your own question now when you broke down the
okay,
difference
let me
between stand your ground and self-defense?
right. Okay, so the question becomes, how is it murder if I have two? Because remember, I don't have a, understand your ground, I don't have a duty to retreat. So I don't have a duty to run away or try and get away. Understand your ground. So if 200 plus, I'm 5'8", 150 pounds. Two over 6'4", over 200-pound people approach me. I'm sitting, they're standing, they put their hands on me. They take my property and start stomping it. How is that not a reasonable threat to my body? So why was he
All right.
charged?
So
Not because that's what the question is, not what they do. The question in this case is, why did they do it?
Lloyd,
so
Lloyd, it goes up.
one
It goes.
second,
It
one
goes to
second,
issue. Go ahead.
one second. Like I said, when I spoke to the judge, he said felony murder if you using self-defense. And he said it sounds like it's self-defense. I said, well, the 17-year-old boy said it was self-defense. But you have to investigate everyone, you have to have evidence. So it's felony murder if it's self-defense. And you said you asked the question, why is it murder? Because someone died. Felony murder is a legal doctrine that holds individuals liable for murder if a death occurs during the commission of a felony, even if they didn't intend to kill anyone. He did not intend to kill him. The boy ended up killing. I mean,
Dana, what would be the underlying felony?
the boy ended up dying, so it wasn't intentional, which is why it's a murder, because someone died by your hands, but you didn't intend to do it, so it's felony murder.
But what would be the underlying felony, at least according to what you discussed with the judge?
What do you mean
Yeah,
underlying
that's what
felony?
I'd like to know.
What is okay? Felony murder means that if somebody dies in the commission of a felony that you are committing, you're the actor committing the felony, and somebody dies as a result of that felony, you are held responsible and you can get hit with felony murder. Everybody, like a bank robbery, if somebody dies while the bank robber or the driver of the car is driving away and they kill someone in a car accident because they were in the commission of a felony, everybody in the
Well,
car can be charged. So, what is the underlying felony that
yeah, well, I don't know,
that
because
Karmelo
again,
would be charged with?
nobody knows because did it go in front of a judge? Did you know what I'm saying? Did both parties, the defense and the prosecutor, present their case? Everybody is jumping the fuck ahead. When somebody gets stabbed,
No, Dana, we're not.
okay,
Dana,
Lloyd, this I guess the first time you've been in my spaces. I have to get to other speakers, and I don't like when people jump off the mic. So I came to you. I'm gonna come back to you. I gotta go to Carrie, Lovely, Shay, Mashon, or Sassy Lady. So just and I need people. Please don't jump off your mic when somebody is talking. Everybody's gonna get their fair share.
And if you're on the stage, please put your hand up so we can keep a good order. Carrie is
Yeah.
next, then it was Lovely, and then I
So
think it was
again, I said this in the beginning of the space. Nobody up here is a lawyer or a judge. Nobody up here is a legal expert. If you are, that does make a difference. If you are a lawyer, if you are a judge, tomorrow on Monday and Tuesday, Judge Joe Brown will be breaking down this whole situation. But when I spoke to him briefly before I started, because he was not coming on today because he didn't feel like it, he said it sounds like self-defense. And in this case, it should be felony murder. Now, he's going to read the goddamn case and the incident that happened so that he can have more of a extensive, you know what I'm saying, summation or point of view. But at the same time, if it's self-defense, and I guess Texas have stand your ground or self-defense laws, and I guess the 17-year-old knew the self-defense laws because that's the first thing he said. Most likely it should be felony murder, and the $1 million bail is too high. And I just want to, and I'm gonna go to Carrie and the other, and I'm gonna be quiet. And I do want to say this though, having this conversation, everyone needs to just keep in mind that a 17-year-old has died, and this is not a laughing matter at all. And I don't care if you pro black, pro pro-white, he was still somebody's child, and we have to be respectful of that as well. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Dana, and thank you, Peter. Hello, how y'all doing? And hello, everyone else on the space. I'm from Texas, and are y'all talking about? Because I feel a little bit in the dark. I wish you would do a synopsis of what happened for self-defense. Are you talking about the two kids on the track meet?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, but then okay, how did he get the knife in if he was, playing track? It's, 17-year-olds, they always go through your shit. I mean, at least the schools I've been to.
He brought the knife with him in his backpack, which he was allowed to
Yes.
do. You're allowed to carry a knife on school grounds as long as it's under 5.5 inches.
Oh,
And
really? I didn't
actually,
know
yeah,
that.
yep. hmm
Well,
He
that's
had
news
it.
to me.
He had it legally.
Okay, okay. Well, that's cool then. But I don't know what all that happened. The only thing I heard was they got into a scuffle, and one kid took the other kid's backpack, and then the other kid stabbed the other kid. But anyway, I didn't hear about this outcome just now. And this is the first I've heard of it. I guess I've been away from the news a little bit, but that's awful for both people here. These are two 17-year-old kids. Sure, the mother lost her child. It's horrible. This horror. I can't even imagine going through something like that in my life.
Right.
But
Thank
then you
you.
don't want to
Uh,
ruin that other child's life, wasted in jail. I mean, that's terrible. So, I don't know. I just don't know. And listening this, for the first time, I'm on social media, but not that much. But only thing I heard on there, I didn't hear about the outcome. And that is
well, there
high.
is no outcome. There is no
No,
outcome
I
yet.
meant the bail.
Oh, okay.
I meant the bail. Excuse me. I better watch my words.
Well, Carrie, let me go to Lovely because I know other people have been keeping up to date with this case. So
Oh, yeah,
we'll get some more
sure. But
information on it.
thanks.
Yeah. So go ahead, Lovely.
I'm gonna make it quick. Peace to everybody. Hey Dana. Hey Peter.
Hey.
It is a
Okay.
super fucking tragedy. What? Excuse me. I keep cursing. I'm sorry, Dana. It is a tragedy. What happened? And even I don't know you, Carrie, but questioning why he had a knife is, I think, a part of the problem. I think we're focusing on the wrong thing. And the two young men, the twin boys, they were known bullies. That's number one. Number two, he didn't just take his backpack. He also smashed his phone, which I did see somewhere. I don't know how true it is, Dane. I don't know if you saw it, that a statement was made by the police department, who also kind of like co-signed these details. And so what I'm hoping, even with the bill, I definitely hope that gets dropped. But I know like in New York, we have something called like a top charge. So if you get like a top charge and they can't meet the requirements of that to actually like convict you, then you could be acquitted. So I'm hoping the murder charge, even though it possibly should be like manslaughter, I don't know Texas law. I'm just hoping that something like that would happen. So you could correct me if I'm wrong though.
They could always file new charges, right? So they could drop the first degree if they want to. The state can do whatever they want, and they always do whatever they want, right? So the prosecutor will be the one who decides what charges ultimately stick, what they're going to bring to the grand jury. So we're at a preliminary stage right now. I don't even think he's been arraigned officially. Once that does happen, there'll be decisions on charging. They'll review any additional evidence or any witnesses or from their investigation, and then that will be presented to the grand jury for them to decide whether to indict or not indict.
Mm-hmm. Shay Mashon. Can you help me pronounce your name? Sha or Shay?
What's good day? Shay Michon is good, or
Shay
Shay
Mashon.
Moss.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I have some questions. I am not a legal attorney, okay, at all. So let me just put that out there. But based on the history of the relationship between the twins and this young man, I understand why the coach would have to go under I'm gonna call it the opposition tent. So he was just following orders as far as I was concerned. I believe it is it's self-defense. What's her name? Oh God, I forgot her name. We had a discussion yesterday because I brought up Kyle Rittenhouse. And like that woman Karen said, oh, I can imagine anybody losing their child. How many people did Carl Rittenhouse kill when he went? His mother
3.
gave him an assault rifle. He killed 3, and one he shot their foot off or a hand off or something to that effect. And he claimed self-defense, even though there's kind of like no comparison, because this young man, he was trying to defend himself against bullies, and I guess he used what he had on him to defend himself. Now my question is, they said that one of the twins had narcotics in his system, and I don't know if that's confirmed yet. Also, my second question is,
That's been debunked.
that's debunked. Okay. All right. So my two questions about the grand jury. I am tired of like young boys being murdered. You hear me? They just lynched another one not long ago. So and the reason why I brought that up because of the racism, and I know it's in Texas, but jury of your peers. So the grand jury is what something I am concerned about. So I don't know if they're going to be partial or impartial because he is a black young man. Also, I wanted to know, I don't know if you could claim, oh, that was the argument for him to claim stand your ground. I said self-defense and she said no, stand your ground, or could it be both or vice versa? And that's all I wanted to add to it. Thank you.
I just want
Uh,
to correct myself as
okay.
well. It was Rittenhouse killed 2 people and injured a third, so it was 2 people. It wasn't 3 people.
Sassy Lady. We have Sassy Lady, Michael,
Good
Spunky, and then
evening.
I'm gonna come back to
Yes.
Lloyd.
Good evening. Peace to the room. Dana, my first time in your room, and I
Welcome.
appreciate that. I also appreciate Judge, and I'm going to really be listening to his explanation uh, since he is a judge and knows the law. Very unfortunate that this happened. I think this is going to be the trial of the year. I think we have one every year, and we do have a loss of life, and there is some history. First thing I said is I'm not going to rush to judgment. I'm not going to rush to judgment. I'd like to hear all the facts and not public opinion, the court of public opinion. I think that's what a lot is happening right now. Like there was a bogus autopsy that came out. Shame on the person that did that. They said it wasn't true, and a lot of this needs to stop with you know the autopsy that came out that wasn't true. We've already been divided. It is going to be a black against white. um and this is just heartbreaking, just because whatever the reason was, the quick reaction after, to cause the severity of what he did. uh and he was such a good, that's what's hurtful. And sometimes, okay, but you also have to remember he was a teenager, so he's not fully like developed, or not fully, not he's not thinking as a grown up. He's not thinking as a grown up as you or I, you know. um but you do know there's some history in this situation. So um the the young boy that's deceased um took it upon himself to do the things that he did, and there was a reaction. All of this is very unfortunate. This young man's life is ruined, and we have one young man deceased. So I don't want to just be repetitive of what everybody's saying. And like I said, I'm going to wait on excuse me, uh judge Judge Joe Brown and his analysis, and I think he'll get it accurate, and he will. set a precedence as to, so we can stop all this talk, just all this talking that's going on, and wait to see uh, what's actually going to happen. We don't know if he is going to plead guilty, you know, or whatever. But it's very unfortunate because two people, one is deceased and one is in a lot of trouble. So, and I want to just say to the that those that are on and I'm landing, those that are on the young man Carmelo side, they actually did a GoFundMe, and a lot of people were upset about it. I wasn't. I contributed just to help him out because I knew the family was gonna struggle. I knew the family would probably struggle for his defense. So that's all I wanted to say. And I just want to say all the talk, if we could kind of, not in this app, but I just can't wait for now. Is Judge Joe going to give his synopsis during his Tuesday night show or
Yeah,
tomorrow?
tomorrow on YouTube, when we go live tomorrow night on YouTube and on his Tuesday X Space.
Okay, because we do have a restitution at the same time when he's having his meeting. But we'll see if what Lloyd says. I know he's gonna want to continue with ours, but I might tip over and listen and let those that are in the space kind of hold it down for a couple of minutes and see what Judge Joe Brown has to say. And I'm glad we have a legal analysis and authority to really tell us how it's going to play out. And he won't just be guessing either. So thank you for allowing me to speak, Miss
Yeah,
Dana. I enjoy you and Judge Brown and everybody in the room. Y'all
you
have a good
too. Thank you
evening.
so
I'm gonna
much.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
land.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Appreciate you coming up. Michael.
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, I'm a black man, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna be real. Like I don't support none of that Carmelo Anthony shit. And as far as my whole thing is he should have fought the guy. He did not have to stab him in his heart. And if he did stab him, he could have stabbed him somewhere anywhere other than the heart. Like you did not have to stab that man. You could have fought that man. And I believe that's the problem nowadays in the world. I mean, like nobody want to get their ass whooped no more. Everybody want to have the mouth be big and bad, but nobody want to throw them hands. You feel me? Because when you go to prison, it ain't no. It's some knives maybe, but ain't no guns. It's more fighting than stabbing. You know what I'm saying? And the whole thing about the case is like if if Carmelo would have stabbed, like say if the Austin guy was black and he would have stabbed the black guy, would everybody be still saying, "Oh, it was stand your ground"? They would have said, yeah, why didn't he fight the guy?" That's just my whole thing. I'm not biased. I'm not gonna be biased. Wrong is wrong and right is right. You know what I'm saying? But I believe the guy should have fought him, and I'm gonna land there.
That was some
And
good points. And I do want to touch on that after I let everybody speak. Because I said that too. Why, when we start to look at teenagers, why are we seeing more teenagers with weapons? Why not fight? So,
but
and
Dana,
it's,
I'd like to support Michael's point in that. I'm sorry to cut you off. In that, well, I'm sorry. I'd like to challenge his point because we don't know the facts. We don't know what was in his mind or the state of mind, and if he was attacked by two people. That's the way that I see this case would really hinge upon, is if there's multiple attackers, it automatically rises to the level of a deadly force scenario. If it's a one-on-one, the defense is going to have a hard time dealing with the issue of proportionality and reasonableness. And those are the two words I want you guys to focus on: proportionality and reasonableness. And I'm excited to hear and be on with the judge on
mhm.
Tuesday night to be able to pose these questions and go back and forth as a defense attorney would versus like a prosecutor. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, but I'm kind of agreeing with what Michael said, and I'm gonna come to you, Spunky, and then I'm gonna come back to you, Lloyd, because to me, Michael seemed like he was talking more to the culture of what is going on in society, especially with kids, with the youth. Why did you even have to have a weapon? Learn to fight with your hands. If it's, especially if it's a bully, because it's like, okay, yes, he most likely will be doing some prison time. And in Texas, he is charged as an adult, meaning he's going straight to prison, not juvie. Um, and then two, if it was a black boy that he stabbed, all these people on X would not be holding, and I'm talking about other than black, maybe some black spaces, but it wouldn't be as much as now. But you white people, y'all wouldn't care. You wouldn't have that same energy, with whether you're defending the one that's deceased or not. So because he's white, it's headline news, and we do have to keep that in mind. Spunky.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for the space. I think anytime you have a situation like this where children are involved, anyone, but especially children, it's just a sad situation. And I know our hearts and prayers go out to everyone. I would like to caution everybody, though. Dana, you just said something that kind of surprised me. Don't group all white people together, because that's not fair any more than us grouping all black people together. For you to say that you think white people wouldn't be holding spaces or whatever, that's not a fair statement, because I can tell you right now, my heart goes out regardless, anytime it's a child and anytime it's a situation like this. Also, it has apparently become a racial divide, because unfortunately a lot of things, when that happens, that's what happens in our country. But it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be a racial divide. It really just needs to be who was in the right and who was in the wrong. And if we all wait to see the stats, the facts, all of that will come out, and then we can make those decisions accordingly. So that's all I wanted to say. I think, these are tough conversations. They need to be had, but it really doesn't have to be a thing about black or white. For me, it really does come down to who's right and who's wrong. And I have no doubt that our justice system will get there and take care of it. And then we can all, decide accordingly.
So let me just say this, Spunky, because when I say white people, I'm not talking about white individuals. I'm talking about in general. And I'm specifically talking about media and social media. Because when this story broke, the first X post that I was seeing was just so happy it was a white person, it was a non-black person, and they were automatically, without even knowing all the facts, labeling Karmelo, he's a murderer, he's a thug, that narrative. So historically and throughout the ages of media, there's always a group that's labeled with this stereotype as opposed to another. So that's the angle. Because yes, when the father came out and made that quick statement, I love that, because that is when you're talking about a father who just lost his child, and he could see the divide and the nonsense that's going on. And for him to say, listen, I lost my son, and that is a travesty. But he also knows it's another kid involved, no matter what color that kid is. So I really appreciate the father being responsible and man enough to do that, because the media is doing the opposite. And the media, a lot of times, is what agitates and causes the racial divide, because it sells. Controversy sells. So when I say white this or black that, that's exactly what I'm seeing on social media, because that's the same thing when we look back at the O.J. Simpson case. And you remember media, as soon as the verdict was read, the media had cameras going to an all white audience and then an all black audience, and they were doing a compare and contrast, right? And that was very much intentional. So individuals such as yourself who could look at something, it's like, what's the facts, and not look at race. Yes, there are a majority of people are like that, but when you have media that tries to manipulate the way we see things, that's what I'm speaking to. So yeah.
And I get that, but then semantics are important. So then instead, let's say the legacy media, or let's refer to it as the media. And I saw those same posts that you're referring to, and unfortunately, you're right. Those people were white, but it could have just as easily been someone black. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, I think those of us that don't think that way, then we should be really careful in how we say things and what we say, because we're the ones that are going to help perpetuate perpetuate things to be right versus wrong, as opposed to white versus black or purple or green.
Which is
But
why
I
I hold
yeah,
spaces, because I want people to, even if they are expressing themselves, well, he's black and we want to protect black, or if someone who's white saying, oh, whatever, if people want to bring race into it, I want to hold spaces that allow that. But at the same time, my bottom line to your point is, let's focus on the facts. And when it's all said and done, what is the facts of this situation and the tragedy? Because it is a tragedy all the way around. And I'm a yield and go ahead. And I'm gonna go to you, Peter, and then Lloyd. But I just watched the Netflix show Adolescence. So I'm looking at all these young youth now. I'm like, what the hell is going on with young people today? And I also want to incorporate that in this conversation as well. But go ahead, Peter, then Lloyd, and then El Hotep.
yeah, I was just going to support you, Dana, in what you're saying, because you do see that divide as far as the media goes. Because you look at how many murders and shootings there are every weekend in Chicago, and the media doesn't really say boo about a lot of that. But then once something happens where they could whip people up into a frenzy based upon a dichotomy, in this case race, they make sure to jump all over it. So I just wanted to support what you said,
Let
and
me
I
just
totally understand what
I
you were saying.
appreciate that. Let me just add this one last thing. The reason why I'm personally bringing up race, because I'm just like, why is everybody focused on the race of the situation and not the tragedy? So go ahead, Lloyd, and then El Hotep.
Shaman has his hand up as well after that.
Okay.
Okay, I've got two things that I'd like to do. First, Peter, I'd like to ask you, procedurally, just strictly procedurally, is it possible for the judge at the arraignment to dismiss the charges?
No,
Is that a possibility?
no.
Wait a minute, are you saying that it cannot happen or it
Again,
won't
I'm
happen?
not a lawyer, but I do play one on Twitter and TV. But no, as far as I am concerned, and from what I know in learning about the law in every single case, I've never seen a case dismissed at an arraignment on the say so of the judge. The arraignment is just a formal
Okay,
reading of the
so
charges.
let me read to you what I found on Google. While it is possible, it is uncommon for a judge to drop the charges at an arraignment in Texas, as the arraignment is primarily for the defendant to hear the charges and enter a plea. However, the prosecutor may choose to drop the charges, especially if there is insufficient evidence or a plea deal is reached. So, again, based on the evidence that has been put out to the media today, is there anybody in the room all the way down space that does not believe this boy is covered under stand your ground, that this was not a self-defense? So we have got to begin looking at what is possible, not what generally happens, but we have to think ahead of that
Yeah, but Lloyd, I
and
did answer
say,
your
wait,
question correctly. The judge doesn't have the power to do it. The prosecutor would have the power to do it. And we would have to look at the prosecutor. What is the likelihood of the prosecutor doing that? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
well, but it would all be based on the evidence. And so, again, that boy was charged within 24 hours. So, witness statements hadn't been taken and all of that. We now know that the two brothers approached him in a very aggressive way. There was physical contact initiated by the twins. And this is the brothers, Hunter said that. So at this point, maybe the prosecutor might see, I really don't have a lot of evidence that's going to work in my favor, but keep in mind, as somebody else also said, this case, or you said, this case is easily whipped up because of the dichotomy. And we have to not be caught up in that. I've not mentioned the race of anybody. I keep saying, what does the law say?
I,
And that's
You go ahead, Lloyd. I'm sorry.
go
I
ahead.
was gonna make a point.
No, you can
I
break and
I
say,
agree with you. I agree with you. That's how we should be looking at the case, divorced from this reality of race that's been spun up by the media. At the end of the day, though, I suspect, and this is just conjecture, what I think, in my opinion, I suspect if they charge it as first degree, they could potentially have other evidence, such as other witnesses and the past events from what I've heard. And I don't know if this is true. This is just what I've heard through this social media app, is that there was a prior event whereby a fight happened, or there was some type of kerfuffle that ensued between Karmelo and Metcalf, and it involved something with a girl. It was like a house party. And so that this precipitated what could have happened at this event. And so if that did happen, and if if you take that on its face, potentially the police could have already been investigating or have been investigating individuals since the arrest happened, bringing in witnesses to that party, and then subpoenaing and getting text messages and other evidence and information that they're going to use to support their case of a first-degree murder charge. I'm just going off conjecture there. So that's why I don't.
And hopefully we'll find out tomorrow.
Correct.
Hopefully we'll find out tomorrow at the arraignment. However, apparently, Karmelo was told by a coach, because it started to rain. Karmelo was there to participate in the track meet. It started to rain, and the coach told him to go into the tent that he was in. And apparently, no one is saying this didn't happen this way that I've seen. Karmelo was there first. The whole piece about them being having a fight at a party was put out by a supposed coach in Frisco, Texas, that was aware of the situation before, aware of that situation before this one went down. So Karmelo was sitting there. The Metcalf brothers come in, see him. The coach said that Karmelo had left the whole fight behind him because he's got to think of his life going ahead. I've got early acceptance to college. I cannot get in any trouble, or I'm going to lose that. So he's sitting there minding his business. They come in, and the whole thing started. They approached him. They very aggressively, apparently, according to early witness statements. So put their hands on him, took his stuff, all that. And he warned them, do not put your hands on me or see what happens. Okay, that's not intent. That's a warning. Understand your ground. I told you, don't touch me again. You did, and now you're dead. Okay, I would caution, and I do feel for the mothers in the room. I do. I feel for everybody that understands the tragedy, the loss of human potential, what the world could be when a 17-year-old dies. However, we cannot allow our positions to be colored in any way by the fact that those two people are 17 years old. We have to stick to what actually happened and then apply what actually happened to the law. And if Karmelo had a reasonable doubt, a reasonable belief that he was in trouble and he might be physically harmed, he's going to school on athletic scholarships. If he couldn't play anymore, his life is over. Are we saying that he should not have stood up and protected himself? That's the lens we have to start looking at this through. I didn't answer any of those questions. I simply asked the questions, and we have to start asking more of the right questions. I will
I
land there.
appreciate that.
Right.
Those
Yeah,
are
that
great.
was good. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
those are
Yep.
great questions to ask. And Lord, if you got time on Tuesday, come into the space and ask those questions to the judge, and I'm pretty sure he will lay it all out. But just real quick before I go to El Hotep, and maybe Peter, you can elaborate more on this. I just thought stand your ground and self-defense the same but difference, and the difference would be stand your ground is self-defense if you're in your home or your car, as opposed to anywhere else out in public. So it could be self-defense. It just may not be stand your ground because he wasn't in his car or in his home. I could be wrong. That's just me
That's how
asking
I
that question.
understand it too, Dana. But I'm going to do a Chat GPT search to see the difference between the two, so we can get some more commentary on that.
All right, I'm gonna go to El Hotep, then swing back to Shamea, and I know I'm saying your name wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna say Shay, and then you correct me. But go ahead, El Hotep.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff Lloyd was saying, I've heard too. So I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate or not, but I've heard some of those same accounts throughout the course of events. To kind of go in on what you said, because I've been hearing a lot of this and that, and one thing I haven't been hearing is, because it's easy to get into a fight, it's easy to punch somebody, knock somebody out, but what we're not discussing is conflict resolution. And this is one reason why I like Maj Toure a lot, because he discusses that a lot. And in today's society, again, this is a prime example of not showing conflict resolution. I think if these two young men had any sense of diffusing the situation, both of them would still, well, one would still be here today, and the other would not be behind bars, right? Secondly, what I predict, what you might see a lot of parallels and comparisons to the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman. You do have two stand your ground states. You have, unfortunately, someone has passed away. So, in a couple of spaces I've been in listening to, they're trying to draw that parallel. Well, this is another comparison to Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman. I know one was different because, again, you had a neighborhood watchman and you had black kid walking from 7-Eleven. But just watch out for those parallels, because they're gonna bring that up throughout the course of this case. um but again, there has to be a clear conversation about conflict resolution and how to diffuse a situation. Again, it's easy to get into a fight and knock someone out, but again, if you knock this person out and they fall and hit their head and they go unconscious and unfortunately they die, you looking at that. In today's society, it's not cool to just say, all right, man, you got it, and walk away. That way everybody lives. But again, we have to start discussing conflict resolution and how we diffuse a situation, and that's not being discussed. And until we hit that, we're missing the whole premise of everything that needs to be discussed.
Totally 1000% agree. Because if that is instituted in our education system, for kids to learn, a lot of incidents probably wouldn't, escalate.
I agree with him too, Dana. And there was a case. What you said is right on. Right, there was a case. I had a friend. His cousin was going to go in the NFL. He was in at a strip club in Paterson, New Jersey. Got thrown out of the strip club. Knocked out the bouncer. The bouncer fell and hit his head. He got hit with a 10-year charge for manslaughter and went up doing 5 years in the state system in New Jersey. So
I remember
you have
that
to.
story.
What's that?
I remember that. I know. I do. I remember that story. Now that you bring that, I remember that story. I just was bringing that up because you hear that a lot, and I've heard that in my time. Like, yo, dude punched this dude, and he fell. He hit his head, and he's not the same anymore. And that made me think, like, dang, okay, if I get into a fight with this guy and he falls and he hits his head, that's on me. But I think a lot of the conflict resolution stuff starts at home. I say that just because I just start getting involved in a youth program right within the last couple of months, and what I'm starting to learn is this stuff isn't taught at home, and surprisingly, the stereotype sometimes is, okay, it's in a single parent home. No, even if it's a mother and a father, there's still sometimes not a discussion on how to diffuse a situation. So I think a lot of this stuff does need to start at home. There does need to put there needs to be an emphasis on conflict resolution and diffusing the situation. And I think that needs to start at home. And I think that needs to be kind of the new norm. If you do get into a situation, yeah, don't be no punk, defend yourself, but first look for diffusing the situation, because again, you don't know what that person has, you don't know what they know, that person doesn't know what you have, and they don't know what you know, and therefore everyone walks away. But this is something that needs to be discussed, and I just yield my time after that.
I agree with you. A lot of great points made, and just one point before we'll move on to the next speaker, like this needs to be done at home. And also I encourage a lot of kids or children to go into martial arts, because they teach you these things in martial arts. They let you know, listen, diffuse a situation, walk away. It's not worth it. It's really not. Martial arts and something where you're going to use self-defense and deadly force is just for that, a deadly force scenario. It's not to be cool. It's not because somebody stepped on your shoe. You just tell them they got it. You're sorry, and keep it moving, man. It's not worth it. You got bigger fish to fry. That's what we go over it a lot of times in the classes, and I think that this needs to be instituted at a younger and younger level. For kids to let them know there is conflict resolution, and it's really not that important. Like, it's not.
Shay, Spunky, then swing back to Lloyd, and then Sway Me. And anybody else want to request to come up, do so, because 2 hour mark, I'm wrapping it up at 9 p.m.
We're about an hour in right now, right,
Yeah.
Dana?
Yeah. Go ahead, Shay. And please, how you pronounce your name?
Shay Mashan, is it?
Shay Mashan? Yes.
Shay Mashan, you're up. Open your mic. It's muted.
I was talking. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dana. I thought it was unmuted. I just want to say, because you brought up the youth and teenagers, and I heard during talking about other things too, but this is what I want to say also. In general, we also have to keep in mind, yes, he is a Black young teenager, and we cannot overlook that, because as a teenager, right? He's been around these dudes, and you talk about conflict resolution. He told them, don't touch him. So obviously, there was something brewing already for him to tell them, don't touch him. Okay. So he has experience of these twins, and they're known, they got pictures with assault rifles, right? So most of our children, Black children, you're not going to see a lot of pictures with assault rifles. It's not really the culture. Like other cultures, they train their children to shoot at a young age. I've seen them train their children 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, how to use a gun, how to use a weapon, what? To defend themselves. Okay. So the maturity of that end, it could go either way. And when it comes to Black children, okay, they know about the racism. They are very well aware. They see what's going on around them. They see the injustice over and over again. They've seen their own people being murdered over and over again. I have to throw that still again out there. The psychology of a 17-year-old. So it's like, if you're in right there, it's like it's either me or it's either me or you, right? So he had to know how to defend himself. And I got to learn how to defend myself, because I had a situation with something similar. And they could turn that shit around and make you look like the violent one, and you're not. So the system is very still corrupt. I don't have faith in the judicial system, even with a good attorney. It's all about that judge and that prosecutor, honey child. And that's all I wanted to say about that. In his defense, because I'm thinking about how he's thinking at the time, me or you, and he had the right to defend himself. You're talking about a knife. These are two big guys. I mean, they're all big built, and it's two of them. So I think when you say look at the facts, we really need to study the facts and the psychology of the matter. Thank you.
Thanks for your submission. Totally 100%. And that's why I said earlier, if it was a 2-on-1 scenario, that rises to the level of deadly force. Because you're fighting two people. You're fighting one, the other one cracks you in the back of the head or knocks you out, and then they stomp you to death. That's deadly force. That's a deadly force scenario. So anytime you're 2-on-1, you're able to escalate to deadly force. And I agree with you, Shay Mashan.
I'm gonna go to Spunky, Lloyd, Sway Me, Duncan, and Carrie. Go ahead, Spunky.
All right. You guys share out the space. This is a good conversation, although a tough one. Get more people in here. It also is being recorded. So when you share it out, it does push the algorithm up and lets more people come back and listen to it. So I looked up some stuff about Stand My Ground, but before I get into that, I just had to push back a little bit on Shay because she mentioned the fact that there were pictures or whatever of the twins with assault rifles. And she said you don't really see a lot of that from the Black community. And I'm going to push back on that because we see a lot of times a lot of young Black men on social media posing with their guns and posing with this and posing with that. So again, I don't think that's a black white thing. I think that we see that coming from both cultures. But with regard to the stand your ground, what AI says, and I hate AI, but it's the quickest way to look stuff up. It says in Texas, the stand your ground law, also known as the Castle Doctrine, allows individuals to use force, including deadly force, in defense without a duty to retreat, as long as they are in a place where they have a right to be and not provoking the situation. So it doesn't specifically speak of a household. And then with the I know you mentioned proportionality. So proportionality, what we're talking about is force must be proportionate to the threat that they felt. So I just wanted to point all that out to you guys. And a good, another, I just have to say it, a good space. I think this is why we need X spaces. I think X spaces have taken like the full gamut, right? And they're all kind of crazy stuff being discussed in spaces. But to me, this is why we should have spaces. And this is why spaces are important. So I commend both of you, Peter and Dana. First time in your space, but I'm really enjoying it. So thank you for the opportunity to speak and to be part of the conversation.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. Lloyd.
Yeah. Um, at the risk of sounding extremely cold and heartless, and I'm not that kind of person, but in this situation, conflict resolution should not be part of the discussion. We should save that for Monday morning to the people that are still alive. Because the one thing that we cannot do is to go back and undie Austin. So the conflict resolution should have been talked about before all of this happened or after going forward. Right now, we should only be focused on what actually happened, devoid of emotion, and applying it to the law. That's the only thing that we're going to do anything for Austin's family, for Carmelo's family, or for America in general. We should be searching to find out what actually happened and only applying it to the law, black and white, the fact they were 17, all of that stuff. 17 is if he gets convicted at a sentencing, then that plays a role. But right now, this is facts only and an application to the law. I'll land there.
Um, Sway me. Hey.
Good evening, Dana, and Peter. I just wanted to say I agree with us focusing on the law. I also want to talk about how we have allowed bullying to become a thing in America. And I know personally from this is just a personal experience that these administrators are not handling the bullying in the school environment. I've had a grandson to have to endure it himself. And yes, he ended up having to fight his bully because nothing was done when the parents did address the issue with the administration. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way we solve our issues. However, bullying is a major issue. And we know we read many a times these young ones, especially the young children, are now committing suicide because they're in school all day with someone that is denigrating them. And then you have adults that are not taking up for them, right? Or making sure there's conflict resolution in these environments. So I also want to state that I did go and read the Texas Stand Your Ground law, and he was there was some aggression there. He may have feared, And when we're in these situations, you never know how things are going to go and how you may react, right? And I will say this, I too was raised to always have something on me to defend myself as a young Black woman out in these streets by myself, not only from my grandmother, but from my uncles, because everybody is not going to be around to support you. So, yes, you may want to fight it out, but there's some aggressors out here. They don't want to fight it out. They don't want to do any conflict resolution either. They just want to take you out. I'll land it there.
All right. Duncan. Duncan, Carrie, Lovely, then the ATM. Duncan, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Duncan, you have to unmute your mic, Duncan. Yep, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
okay. Okay. Um I just want to say that it's sad that in time a child lose their life, you know, so it's not nothing that we should sensationalize, and I don't think nobody is doing it. I think people trying to have an honest conversation. Um I don't I would be low to say that hitting someone in the face, physically attacking somebody, trying to fight somebody, even though it wasn't 2-on-1, even just like if somebody attacks somebody, I wouldn't say that that's not deadly force. You know, you could say that it's not deadly force. Anybody can say that, but a fight can turn deadly. You know, you could die. You can get hit in the wrong place in the head and die. So to make sure you don't die, you should make sure you're not like agitating somebody. From what I heard, they attacked Carmelo more than once. I heard they jumped on him, destroyed his property. So this was ongoing physical attacks. So how long does somebody have to, be attacked, before they defend themselves by any means? Those were the means that he probably felt, and like I said, I wouldn't say that if somebody like if I go hit somebody in the face that I feel that I'm tougher than and I get shot, um, I'm pretty sure that they would not say that it wasn't self defense. I can't go around punching on people. You see what I'm saying? And
No, but so, let me stop you there. So there's the issue. The other word I spoke about, proportionality. That is, and I just put it in the jumbotron. It's coming up there now. That proportionality
right.
standard is crucial for this, right? Because it has to be proportional. If someone punches you in the face, you can't pull out a Mac 10 and empty the magazine into them. You're only allowed to use force proportionate with the force that has been used against you, unless, and this is where I'm so ridiculous, unless you're a police officer. Police officers have the ability to use one level higher on the force continuum when it comes to using force against an individual. So we as regular citizens, if you're not in law enforcement, you could only use force that's proportional to the force that's used against you. And I put those and a couple other standards in the jumbotron, which are going to be instrumental for how this case hinges. And those are the facts that the jury, who's going to be charged by the judge to apply the law, and them being the finders of fact, are going to be the ones to decide that. That's why I'm so excited for the judge to come tomorrow and Tuesday
and,
to
and
go
and I
through.
get that, but I think you're blowing it way out of proportion by equating his knife to a Mac 10. I I I don't see a reason why you couldn't say if somebody hit me in my face, I couldn't pull out a knife because that's the situation we're talking about. He didn't pull out a Mac 10, he pulled out a knife. And I don't, like I said, I, you can't say that that's not the same type of force. If somebody hit me in the face and they stronger than me, a knife is the same thing as them hitting me in my face. You can easily avoid that by not hitting me in my face. I mean, that can
You
be
under,
easily
you
avoided.
understand, Duncan, the law doesn't feel that way. You understand that, right?
Well, I think the laws in this country depends on who you're talking about. If I go and hit an elderly white woman, I know you get that. If I hit an elderly white woman in her face, she will be able to say that that was deadly force, right? Because I'm stronger than her. By me being a male, by me being younger, I'm stronger than her. And so he obviously knew he was stronger than him because he kept trying to bully him. So I think you pick and choose when to say it's deadly force. I know for a fact if I go hit an elderly white woman in her face, you would not say that was deadly force. You would be on point with saying that that was deadly force. And I think if you try to deny that, and I think and I get it. People they choose sides, but and I choosing side. I don't think nobody should be bullied on. If you attack somebody and you hit them in their face and you know you're stronger than them, that equalizes the playing field. And like I
Right, but
said, I
that
know.
goes to reasonableness, right?
No, I'm asking you a question. If I was to attack somebody weaker than me, say an elderly white woman, if I hit her
Why
in the
just got
face,
to be
bam,
white, Duncan? Why not
stole
just an
on.
elderly woman?
Because I know he wouldn't understand if I said I wanted to make it where he could get it,
He,
right?
he's assuming that because I'm Sicilian that I'm automatically going to
Exactly.
be siding with the
Exactly.
white people. That's why he's saying that. I
And
understand.
I
Go ahead.
and that's and, that, and but would you answer my question? If
I
I
will.
did do that, would you say that that was deadly force? Say if she stabbed me after, I'm not gonna, just blow it out of proportion and say a Mac 10. Say if she stabbed me after I hit her in the face, would you say she was justified?
I would say no. She's not justified in using deadly force unless she
Okay,
feels like her life.
I
How
will
about this,
say
Duncan? I'll
that I'm
equalize
not
it. I'll
thinking.
equalize it. What if
Okay.
it's two elderly women? What if one elderly woman punches another elderly woman in the face? Now, the elderly woman who got punched in the face, and she pulls out a knife and stabs the elderly woman who punched her in the face to death. What would you say?
Well, I would say that that's not the same scenario. Are you saying that Carmelo was not being bullied? Because if he's being bullied, he's not strong as the other guy that's bullying him. So
Well,
I
that's
don't
what.
think that's a fair comparison. I
Well, no.
really think that's a fair
If you
comparison.
you must have not been here earlier. I said that if it was a 2-on-1 situation,
Oh yeah,
that
I heard
would.
you say that. I heard you say
Yeah.
that. But but
Hmm.
but what I'm saying is that he overpowered. He was stronger than him. So
Okay,
if
so
he
you're
knew
saying
that he
that
was stronger than him,
Austin was stronger than Carmelo, is what you're saying, correct?
yeah, that's why he was bullying him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that situation, that goes to reasonableness, right? And the jury's going to weigh reasonableness. If they're saying that
Hmm.
two men of around the same age, and we could go into their body weight, their physical stature, a whole bunch of different metrics, and let's say that I'll concede your point. I'll say let's say that Austin is stronger than Carmelo, right? So Carmelo's in a weaker position. Does that
Hmm.
give rise to allow Carmelo to use a deadly weapon if the force used against Carmelo is simply fists? And that goes
Well,
to
it did. It
reasonableness and
did. It did
proportionality.
enjoy. It did enjoy Zimmerman's situation, right? If we use the precedents, it did enjoy Zimmerman's situation. So I don't see why all of a sudden, the law would feel different now. Because Trayvon did not have a weapon, right?
You're
And
right
it was
about
all right.
you're right. You're right. I agree
And
with you.
and not only that, we're talking about a person that was a child being attacked by an adult. So, Zimmerman was the adult in the situation. So now we saying that, okay, well, we're saying that somebody's being bullied. So somebody being bullied can't use deadly force, but Zimmerman can. And and you agree with me, but we're talking about what the courts agree with. And the courts
Right.
are hypocritical when it comes to black people defending themselves.
Which I think
And that's
goes to
all I want
Lloyd's
to say.
point about why the money needs to be raised so they can get good defense counsel, competent defense counsel, special investigators. Do you understand that a lot of these trials, the cost is upwards of $500,000 to $1 million? Because what the defense is using is they're using private investigators to go seek out the individuals who are potentially there, lock them into statements, and then being able to use those statements as exculpatory evidence at the
And
trial.
Peter,
So
let me
that's
ask you a
why.
question. Let me ask you a question. Now, if the situation was on the other hand, I don't think it would. He would have he would have companies donating to him. Let me use an example. When George Zimmerman did what he did, that was I think the Koch brothers. They donated to him. It was other companies. It was businesses donating to George Zimmerman legal defense. So like white society has a habit of Voltroning around when a black person is a victim, right?
I agree with you.
Uh
I agree with you.
yeah, and we would not be seeing all of this overwhelming donations that if the shoe was on the other hand, say if he would have killed Carmelo, I'm pretty sure Walmart, right? Ford would be donated. He would have so
But
much
let me
in
jump in here. Let me jump in here
his
because I have
corner.
to get to other people that came up in the hands. That's a hell of
Okay.
an assumption, and I doubt. I doubt it.
Well,
I doubt it.
well.
I doubt
It's
it.
not
I
even an
doubt it
assumption. I
that
was
a
using that
corporation in this climate right now would set up here.
they
I
did
don't.
with
That was then.
Zimmerman.
That was
Yeah,
then.
but it's a different
That was then.
situation,
That was a
Duncan,
different
with in light of
climate. And let
BLM
me
and
just
what
say this,
happened.
Duncan,
Yeah,
because even
exactly.
during that George Zimmerman situation, even though George Zimmerman was a piece of shit for what he did, why the fuck didn't black people get up off their ass and protest and tear shit up or demand justice during, before, during, and after? So right now in 2025, if
They did. That's
no,
why
they did
George
not.
Zimmerman
No, they
got
did not.
arrested. They had
No,
to
they did not.
protest. Yes, they
No,
did.
no.
They
I'm not
had to
talking
have.
about. I'm not talking about one fucking protest. I'm not. I'm not talking about one fucking protest. I want to know where was
No
the
F word,
goddamn
Dana,
legal
please.
experts to follow up with that shit? You know what happened? You got fucking Ben Crump that set off his career off that fucking case, and made sure that the family, got probably some type of settlement or movie deals or whatever the hell. But it was no real justice afterwards. So again, in 2025,
Well,
if
if you
if it
saying
if it let me
they
finish,
didn't
Duncan,
protest,
please let me finish, and I gotta get to Lovely. In 2025, if it was reversed and it was Austin stabbing Carmelo, no major corporation in their right fucking mind right now would sit up here and donate to that white to the white teenager. Absolutely not. So I beg to differ with you on that one. But I need to get to Lovely, then ATM, Michael Lloyd, Bain,
well,
Lamar, and
Trump
then
took.
Spunky. Go ahead, Lovely.
So Dana, earlier you were saying that you wanted to also incorporate like why are the teenagers and the kids moving in the fashion that they're moving, right?
Yes.
So when a couple of years ago, well, several years ago, my stepdaughter, she was 16, 17, and the ball dropped for 2011, and she started screaming and crying and telling me they were all going to die. So eventually, like maybe about 20 minutes later, I made her come out and talk to me. And I asked her, I said, why would you be so passionate and so wrong? Like, and she told me that her and all of her friends and all the kids under her, they don't know how to talk to their parents and their teachers about this, but they discuss it amongst each other. And I guess the music now, like some of the songs are saying, all my friends are dead. And she said that they are all kind of just like, they don't believe that they're going to have a future. They don't believe that they're really going to be able to see 25 or 30 years old. So they don't, they take more risks than we ever did. So that's just something that once my stepdaughter explained that to me, like I just started to view her and the children, now she's 30. I view their situation and their perception and the way they do things. I try to have a little bit more patience for what they go through. And then the other thing was somebody, a woman, I think it might have been Spunky, or it was someone else that was saying that the schools don't handle bullying. And also another situation with my stepdaughter, she was being severely bullied. I'm talking about, they were talking about putting people in body bags on Twitter, and her father, myself, we would go to the school, complain as many times, and the principal told me to my face, there's nothing that she could do about it because the girl that was bullying my stepdaughter, her mother worked for the Department of Education or something like that. And I had to go to the precinct around the corner from the school, get a police report, just in case on her way home from school, they would do something to my daughter. And Peter, her father, is a martial arts shifu. So she did know how to train herself in martial arts very well. So it was like, if they were to fight, and it gets to a bad situation, God forbid, I would have had the paperwork to prove that I did something to protect to protect her. So I just wanted to bring that to the table in response to two things that I heard. And I yield.
1 second, lovely. So that bitch ass principal, and yeah, these damn principals in high schools, because I had to, well, my daughter, not so much my son, my daughter, because she went to public school, it was a magnet, but it was public high school. The administrations, they could be full of shit a lot of times. And I believe you to where you got a punk ass principal saying, well, we can't do anything. And the moment that he has said, because her mother worked for the board, lawyers need to get involved, because once lawyers get involved and those motherfuckers get a phone call, oh, people heads start rolling. Then you get the phone calls. Then mother will come down to the school, because I would make a complaint to that principal that he did not do his job because of nepotism. So
You know what it was too, and sadly it was a woman. But what happened was all the girls, everybody involved, like maybe like a couple of weeks later, ended up having what they called it a brawl out, and they had to dismiss all the people from school. I had to go pick up my daughter. All of these girls are sitting in there. The security guard like, oh my God, Mrs. So much hair on the floor. I said, but how many times have I asked y'all to do something about this? And so what me and her father did, being a part of the 5% Nation of Guards and Nerves, we decided I don't know how we did it, but we reached out how our father did it. A councilman came to the school, and on a day that the school was closed, we had all of the girls that were involved in the fight sit in a round table and discuss their grievances. And I guess he also broke down to them, like, this is the repercussions of what could happen to you. I do believe it affected my daughter in a positive way. I can't speak for the other kids, but when I say the school did nothing and we had to take matters into our own hands because we cared about not just my child, not just my stepdaughter, but also the other kids that were involved in their future. And these were 16 and 17-year-olds. So God forbid, like, somebody could have like died. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely. And listen, that's great. And I love, 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 love what you and your husband did. And more parents should be more hands-on and do that as well. It has to be some type of intervention. Something else has to go on. And it's a shame that parents, you get up, you work every day, but it's a lot. We have to do the work of these damn administrators. But I believe in calling lawyers, because when you call a goddamn lawyer, especially you got a good one, honey, and you get them motherfuckers down there and they start talking that legal shit, that's when people all of a sudden know they goddamn school policies. People know what the fuck to do. So I call lawyers first, and yes, and then we can have the round circle. But because bitch, because I got grandkids, honey, I already told my daughter, because I think it was my grandson, some boy at that school, I said, bitch, I would get on a plane down North Carolina quick. I'm not going to whoop no kid ass, but I'm going to whip that kid mama ass. Don't play with me. So y'all better handle that.
Dana, that's funny because my instructor said the same thing. He was having a problem with his son in school where this kid was bullying his son, and he said, beat the shit out of this kid. And so they fought, and then my Sifu was called into the office with the principal and administrators, and he said, yeah, I told him to beat him up because you guys wouldn't handle it. And he said, all right, well, if he does that again, like, he's going to get suspended and expelled. So then my teacher told the principal, if that happens and there's another issue and you don't address it, I'm taking it
Right.
out on you. And and my teacher was a police officer at the time, and he's telling
I'm
the
like, you can't
administrator
even
this.
tell
So
your
I
kid,
think Lovely
let me
handled it
knock your
exactly the
fucking
same.
teeth out
Good
so
way,
your
yeah.
kid can see you being fucking bullied. And I can't stand a bully. I cannot. Let me go to ATM is still here.
Yeah, what's the
Yeah,
order?
ATM. Well, he
I
must
want to
have
keep the
dropped out.
order.
It was
So where are
ATM,
we at?
Michael, Lloyd, Bain, Lamar, and Spunky. Now who left? ATM is not here. Is Michael still up here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here.
Michael's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Michael, then Lloyd. I don't know if
Yeah,
Bain's still here. No. Lamar?
yeah. What I
Yeah, okay.
Let's do Lloyd, then Lamar, and then
Was
Spunky
Michael,
and
who
Hotep.
thing is that? Go ahead, Michael. And can you get
yeah,
off
what I want to
speaker?
say is,
You gotta get off speaker.
you hear me?
You were echo, honey. Are you on speaker?
Oh, yeah, I'm on the mic. You can hear me? Yes or no?
But it's an
Yeah, we
echo.
can
So
hear
can
you,
you get off the mic?
but
All
there's
right,
an
let me
echo.
leave
There's
and come
a
back because
Okay.
y'all low too.
All right.
cool. Thank you. Let's go to Lloyd, and then we'll go to Lamar and Spunky.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and Duncan, don't take it personally. I'm just using you as an example. So I think it's important in these kinds of situations that we do a lot more listening than we do talking, because Peter said that he posted proportionality in Texas. And so I went and read it. And once again, the proportionality part of the stand your ground issue falls on the side of Karmelo, because it says in Texas, the use of force in self-defense must be proportional to the threat faced. This means that the force employed should not exceed what is reasonably necessary to defend against the threat. For instance, deadly force can only be used when there is a reasonable belief that it is necessary to protect against death, serious bodily injury, kidnapping, or sexual assault. So I would ask this question to Peter when we're talking about proportionality, and he has said it over and over and over, but I'm asking you again, Peter. If two very big people approach you in a menacing way, is it proportional to believe their intent is to cause you serious bodily harm?
Yes, and deadly force is allowed. I go over this a lot of times with my instructor in class. Like, are you able to use a knife? Like, because we train with knives, right? We train with dummy knives, obviously, but we're training an art called Kali. And in Kali, it's a military art where you're doing things to open up someone's aorta or their veins to kill them. And so I always ask, like, when is a deadly force scenario applicable? And I said, if it's 2-on-1, is that deadly force? And he said, yeah, that's a deadly force scenario. That's why I said this, if it is truly, the facts bore out that this was 2-on-1, he is justified in his response.
So then we never have to talk again about it being a black kid versus a white kid, or a white kid versus a black kid. The fact of the matter is that two very big people approached this kid in a menacing way and posed a threat of seriously bodily harm to death, because that is a possibility. So therefore, when you apply it back to the law, stand your ground. Should Karmelo Anthony have been indicted or charged? That's the only question.
Again, again, Lloyd, the reason that they do it is because of the nature of
And,
the
and I
outcome.
get that.
The sub,
I
yeah.
get that. I understand that. But at what point, or before we get to trial, are we going to ask this question? Has a crime been committed? It doesn't matter that
That's going to go before the. That's going to the grand
I
jury.
can kill somebody. No, I can kill somebody because I saw this man attacking this child, and I went at him and he died. I killed him. Should I be charged with murder or charged with anything? Because I was protecting a child. Therefore, I shouldn't be charged, and probably won't be. So let's not
Unfortunate.
make a lot of
Yeah,
assumptions. Let's find out what the facts are and apply them against the law. Because again,
Lloyd. Unfortunately, with the grand jury system as it is, I'm sure you've heard you can indict a ham sandwich, and that's not hyperbole. You could literally indict a ham sandwich because you have no right to have your lawyer there to present exculpatory
but
evidence.
here's the funny part,
That
Peter,
the
about that.
yeah.
Here's the funny part. That DA that makes that decision is probably elected. They may have a recall provision. And once all of us understand the facts and how they are to be applied against the law, if he hasn't done that, then we go after him, because we can get rid of politicians that are corrupt or have hidden agendas. We can do that. So again, can we talk about the facts of the case? The fact is that number one, Texas is a stand your ground state. Number two, that means there is no duty to retreat. Number three, these two people who outweighed him by at least 50 pounds each and 5 inches approached him in an aggressive and clearly stated, you're about to get hurt attitude. That is undisputed. The people keep saying that's what happened. The witnesses may change their statements, but that's what was put out the day it happened, when the news was just talking to anybody that would talk. So that's what's out there from reputable news sources, not social media. Reputable news sources are saying that. So therefore, again, we've got to put our emotions down. We have to put down, this is the way they treat black people, and we always have to keep in mind it's a black. No, we don't. We have to know what the law says and what they're supposed to do, and then make them do it. I'll land there.
I agree, Lloyd, and I just want to add one caveat. So then this is what, I put it in the next, it was the first thing I put up there as well. Some finer points on successfully asserting an affirmative defense. And this is in Texas. This is from sharpcriminalattorney.com, a criminal defense attorney in Texas. It says, that said, proving self-defense in court poses some challenges. Self-defense may be claimed in certain circumstances, including 1, the individual used only the level of force necessary to defend themselves. 2, the individual needed to use force to stop someone's illegal violence. 3, now this is an important part, because if he did say, touch me and see what happens, there could be an element where the prosecution is saying that he did this, which is the person didn't goad or prompt the other party to use force. And 4, the individual wasn't in the process of performing criminal activities or committing a criminal act, which is why I want to hear what the judge has to say about why he thinks this is a felony murder charge. So my point, though, Lloyd, was that in light of number 3, I could see the prosecutor trying to say that he invited this action so he could use the knife, and that's why they charged the first-degree murder count.
Or you
And I'll
can
land
say
there.
he warned him, I'm feeling threatened, please don't touch me, because I may not be responsible for what I do if you touch me again. That's not setting anything up. That's a warning.
Well, the verbiage is important there, right? Because you changed what he said. Allegedly, what was, and this is why I hate doing this. We don't know all the facts and have them exactly right. But originally, he said, touch me and see what happens. That could be, depending on the attorney and the voir dire process of what type of lawyers they pick that are going to go before and he's make this argument. They could say that was
that goading, or was that an attempt to save his life, to save himself from a second beatdown?
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that's going to be for the finders of fact to determine the jurors.
That's going to be subjective, because
exactly. Yeah, right.
And so,
right.
And that's the problem, is that there is objective and there is subjective. The objective part is there is no dispute against those two boys approaching him as a unit. There's no disputing that. Anything else, almost everything else, is subjective. What was in his mind, what you would have done in that situation, But there's no disputing that there is a law that says I have a duty to I have a right to stand my ground, and I do not have a duty to retreat. It doesn't only in Texas, it doesn't only apply to your home and your car. It applies to any place that you have a legal right to be. There is no argument against that he was not legally in the right to be where Karmelo was. There's none of that. So why do we keep adding all this stuff to add layers on that don't need to be here? It's 95 degrees and we're putting 12 blankets on this.
I'm telling you how the prosecutor is going to approach this. That's what I'm saying.
But Peter, I get that, but that's not the question. The question is, what are we going to do? I would point, the last time I looked,
Who's the we?
Our community, because that's our child.
It's nothing we could do right now. We can't do anything.
There's a whole lot we can. Wait a minute. 3 days ago, people saying, oh, there's nothing we could do. 24 hours ago, less than 24 hours ago, Mike Baggs put up that this is where to send the money.
Sending money for his defense, but it's nothing we could do when it comes to the case.
Dana, let me make my point, please.
I'm asking you a question. When you're saying who
okay, and I'm answering. I was answering it. We are our community.
To do what?
Whatever it takes to get.
So Lloyd, this is what I'm saying.
Can I finish the question? Can I answer the question?
I get your question, and I want to step in and see something to that question. Well, it's not even a question to your statement. Only thing that we, quote unquote, the society, community, whether you black, white, or whatever, could do, yes, you could donate for his defense. But there's no we or community besides that. The we is the goddamn law. The law has to take place. This
You
is
need
the
to
law we're talking about. We can't influence the law. The media cannot influence the law. That is illegal and it's unconstitutional. So
you need to
there's
tell
no
the
way except for the funding for his defense if you so choose to do that.
you need to tell the Gen 6 that.
No, I don't need to tell anybody. That is just a fact. Maybe you
No,
need
no,
to
no,
go and
no, no. Because
understand how this
do
law
you know
works.
who?
Wait, slow
Do you
down
know?
1 second, Lloyd. Slow down. Because I said this in the beginning. Nobody is not a legal expert up here. And by your comment alone, that says it that you are not a legal expert. So I understand you have great questions. Great questions. And I invite you to come to the Tuesday space when we have a legal expert, i.e., judge, a real judge, Judge Joe Brown. But other than that, to say we as a community, what are we going to do to help his case? Ain't shit we could do but help his fund if you choose to do that. There is a law. We have laws here, and you have to abide by the law. Everybody gets due process, and it cannot be influenced by the media or by us. Come on, that's just common sense. Now you may not like
Lloyd,
it, but that's what it is.
Okay,
yeah,
could I respond to
yeah,
that?
and Dana, you make her.
Can I
Yeah,
respond to that?
Lloyd, really quick.
Respond,
Yes,
and then
yes,
I'm gonna go
absolutely.
to
Just give me
Lamar.
two, 2 seconds though, Dana. Let me jump in. Lloyd, basically, I understand you know what she's saying, but like it does draw parallels if you're saying that we're going to unduly influence certain members of the legal system, and it's going to influence how the court system is applied. You're running into things where you've seen like Maxine Waters talking about getting in people's faces in the streets and other things that are then leading to what we see with like a red brigade status. And I don't want to go into that, but that's where I think Dana was alluding to as well. I don't know if
Okay,
I'm right or wrong, Dana.
that okay, that is not what I'm saying at all. I am saying that we as a community can do a whole lot of things that are not unethical, that are not illegal, that are not any of those things. It's simply when they put every story that was put out about Daniel Penny or George Hernandez, George Mark, what's his name? George Hernandez
Zimmerman.
Zimmerman. I don't know why I want to call this man a Spanish name. Okay, George Zimmerman or Kyle Rittenhouse, or pick one. Okay, those were people behind the scenes that were planting stories for public opinion. That's where do you think the jury is going to come from? It's from the public. And if we allow a narrative to be put out there that paints him as guilty before they even have the trial, the jurors are walking into the room thinking that he's guilty already. And with our history in this country, he's probably going to get convicted unless we do our job. Again, Jenna 6, when they started bringing people from around the country every weekend down there, things changed. And the kids got off. They weren't guilty. And um, there are other, I don't want to say anecdotes, but there are other cases where the public began to understand the whole case and said, oh no, this is wrong. We're not going with this. No. And things had to change.
I'm gonna be
But
real.
we,
He gonna beat that charge, man. Not to cut
I
you off or
know it.
nothing of that. He gonna beat the charge. But this is my whole thing. With you
Wait, one
when not
second, Michael, and your mic sound better. Um,
okay.
uh,
I was next.
you
Remember,
were next. I'm sorry. Yeah. So
Yeah, you were next. We'll go to you, and then we'll go
yeah.
right to Lamar because he's been waiting as well.
my whole thing though is you saying what should we do about this as a community. My whole thing is the best thing to do about this is really to change the stand your ground law. Have some limitations on it, man. Like because where I'm from New Jersey. Uh, the Carmelo Anthony guy would have been straight guilty, no ifs, ands, or
Yeah,
buts.
because we don't have stand your ground. We have a duty to retreat. We don't
Exactly.
even have like castle doc.
Ex-
Yeah, you have to retreat even in your own
ex-
house, which is wild to
exactly.
me.
But it let's be real. If this was in New Jersey, would they have fought, or would they have, or would the kid still got stabbed? Because at the end of the day, if that law was changed, like I'm not saying, oh yeah, change the law, completely take the stand your ground law away. No, just have some little tweaks on it. If nobody else has a knife, you shouldn't have a knife.
Can I
You get what
interject
I'm
real
saying?
quick, Michael? Because you just brought up a great point, and I think Carmelo. He probably, I think he'd get a fairer trial in Texas than he would in New Jersey. And people need to understand, yes, New Jersey is quote unquote blue when we vote for president. Sometimes it's red for governors, but it don't matter. That's New Jersey is racist as hell, and they don't have self defense. And if you remember, Michael and others, the 14-year-old that shot and killed the police officer in Newark. Now he was 14, so no matter how horrendous the crime is, under 15, you are a juvie. 15 and up, they can have the option of
Try you as an adult. Yep.
yes. So
They just waved them
Austin
up.
would
Yep.
have been held as murdered, probably not even fucking felony. Like, yeah, I think he's going to get a fair trial in Texas than in a whole lot of other these liberal, so-called liberal states, particularly New Jersey. But go ahead and finish up, and then I'm gonna go
And I
over to
just want to
Michael.
correct. I want to correct one thing. Somebody said earlier. There is no death penalty for anyone who's a minor under 18. It was thrown out with Roper v. Simmons in 2005, and I never said that he should get the death penalty. I don't know why somebody said that in another space, but it was erroneous, and I wanted to correct it.
Can I
Go ahead, Michael.
can I quickly ask Michael a question?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so Michael, in this case, are we to apply what the law should be or what it was or was at the time the issue was committed?
Oh, we
Which one
go.
should we use?
You're going to have to use the laws that was already in play. You can't switch it up. Like I said,
Exactly.
I'm
That's
against.
my point.
I'm against the Cleon. I mean, the Carmelo guy. I don't support what he did.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, the law is the law. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna have to keep the same law, just like the Kyle Rittenhouse. I wanted that motherfucker to go to jail and be under. I think what he did was wrong, but the law was the law, and he got off.
Yeah, there's a thing called ex post facto, right? So you can't be punished for something that wasn't punishable or on the books prior. You don't, even if the law has changed
I want to
recently.
get to
All I'm saying,
Lamar. I gotta get to Lamar because he's been waiting a long time. Lamar, then Spunky,
Let's
and
go.
then
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. Thanks for the space. I think it's a really good conversation. I was not aware that Judge Joe Brown was going to be in a space to break all this down, so I'll be looking forward to that. I'm in the same place as Peter, but because of the lack of information, I think it's easy for us to understandably fall into a lot of conjecture and scenario analysis and what if this and what if that. I find myself going back to two things that appear to be fixed. The first one is that Carmelo came to the school grounds with a knife, which I think is going to be interesting to see how the defense handles that. But then there's also this other instance of, based off of reporting now, that Carmelo was approached by Austin and his brother. But there's questions about the fashion in which it happens and the nuance of the degree of aggressiveness in which that happened. So I don't know. I think as I talked to my brother about this, talked to my wife about this, and I think the linchpin will be how the defense is able to frame him being armed on school grounds. And I think in the state of Texas that's illegal. So I think that's going to be problematic. On top of everything.
Lamar, we found. Yeah, I found it in the state of Texas. As long as the knife is under 5.5 inches, it is legal to carry the knife for a minor or an adult in the state of Texas.
What was it under that length?
I don't more again to your point. These are facts that we
Gotcha. Yeah,
don't know right
that's
now.
fair. Yeah. So all that said, I think it'll be interesting. I to the point of what we can do as a society to address this. I think we've got to instill the value of life again. I hear a lot of, like, I know Peter trains in martial arts. When I was in the U.S. Army, I was on the combative. I did Army combatives. Um, what I find interesting about people that are involved in martial arts is one of the first things you learn is the best way to win a fight is to avoid one. And I think I heard someone mention something before about not risk mitigation, but conflict resolution. I think it's been a lost art. I remember listening to my father, and he passed away in 2007 at 87 years old. So I grew up with a very old school father who remembers when things were a lot different. But he talked about how people were able to have a disagreement, and even if it came to, as he would say, fisticuffs, both people walked away. And in many instances, people that got in a fight would later end up friends in the neighborhood, depending on how that all worked out. So and I know that's not a quick fix, but we better figure something out, because if these young kids are under the belief that the best way to address issues is to emulate the wild wild west with high noon duels, our future's in trouble. And I'll land there. Thanks.
I agree.
Appreciate you, Lamar. Great analysis. Yep.
Funky. And then we have two new speakers, South and IDC. What is this? Oh, Kamala. Yeah. All right. So go ahead. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Funky, then South.
All right, thank you so much. I kind of took some notes. So first and foremost, I wanted to, I don't see her down there, but my heart goes out to Lovely and what she said about her daughter and the schools and the way that they were feeling. I am a special education teacher. That is my career. And I'll be the first to say that our public school systems, as well as I'm sure others, are completely messed up. And the bullying has gotten out of hand. And so I'd like to encourage everyone. I think the first step in helping to stop that is for people to really get involved at the local levels and really get involved when you're having those elections for your school board members, because your school board members are the ones that control the superintendents, and the superintendents are the ones that control the administrators and the schools. So it all trickles down. So it does go back to that involvement at that local level. So I hope everybody will take that and heed to it. I also wanted to mention, I know conflict resolution has come up. Lamar mentioned it. We mentioned it earlier. And Lloyd, if I'm not mistaken, I think you kind of said, you know what, we don't really need to focus on that. But I'm going to push back and disagree. When you have an incident like this one, unfortunately, it can be a catalyst for other incidents. And so I think it is extremely important for people to start talking about conflict resolution in the families, in the churches, yes, and also in the schools. But it does start in the families. We have got to get our children back to knowing how to have conversations with one another. That's a whole space in and of itself about the breakdown of communication, about the impact that gaming, and the impact of killing with the gaming industry, and how that has kind of numbed everyone about killing each other, and that being the first, conflict resolution step that they take, although we know that that's the worst one. So I just think those conversations around conflict resolution are extremely important. And I don't see that in any way as something that we should not be talking about right now, because unfortunately, like I said, this incident in and of itself could be a catalyst for other similar incidents. And if we can do something to stop that, it would really be great.
Yeah, I agree 1000%. Um, and I like when people that do have a specialty, like you have a specialty in education. And I love what Lovely and her husband, what they did for those girls at that school. And I don't, people need to understand, when you actually invest in the youth and kids, stuff like that sticks with them forever, to where that you don't even know, you probably end up saving their lives down the line of educating them and letting them understand and learn how to solve conflict, and how to behave. All right, South, then Kamala, El Hotep, Duncan, Lloyd, and then we'll close out.
Dana, I'm just going to rotate a speaker or two because we have one more that wants to come up, Stro
Okay,
304.
was Carrie
So
requesting to come up?
she is
Yeah, because
requesting
let
now,
her come
yeah,
up too, because she's
I
been
see it.
requesting for a minute. So I guess, yeah. So okay, so we have South, Kamala, El Hotep, Duncan, Lloyd, the two speakers, and then Carrie as well, and then we'll close out. So go ahead, South.
Got it.
Consider on 3 minute submission.
Oh, can you
There's
speak
two.
up?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Kind of.
A
All
little
right.
bit better if you could speak closer
Yes,
to the
sir.
mic.
So there's two different fights we have right now. There was the fight between Carmelo and Austin. That's the first fight. That fight is over. Now we have the fight between Carmelo and the state of Texas and that legal system. The charge is first degree murder. The charge is not self defense. It's not stand your ground. The state is responsible for proving that argument. That is it. He is innocent until proven guilty. Now, the trial that's happening right now in this public circus,
that we call Twitter and all of these other facets, the media, etc., that's the trial of public opinion. What this is going to come down to is the heart and integrity of this nation. Are we going to stand behind the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and everything else, and the natural right to self defense, or is it going to stand against hearsay and he said, she said? So, once again, not only is this young man on trial, this country is on trial. So, choose wisely because we have multiple cases of plenty of people dying, whether they be black or white. So, at this point in time, America needs to choose very carefully what it wants to decide. Will you choose justice and liberty, or will you choose annihilation? I yield.
Appreciate that. Go ahead, Kamala.
Come on, you got to come off your mic.
Yeah, I'm off. So just by hi everybody, by the way. Hi co-host, hi host, hi everybody. Um
Hi.
Hi Lamar. So I wanted to say that that's been a conversation in other spaces as well. The details, we don't have the details. That is true. I'm hearing conflicting stories as well. First I'm hearing that Karmelo, went to the school. He doesn't go to the school. He sat under some sort of a tent or something they had there, and Austin told him that he can't sit there if he doesn't go to the school. Then there was a whole make me move type of a situation. And then it just escalated, and there was a lot of back and forth, and it was like, make me, if you touch me, you'll see what happens. I mean, this is what other news outlets were reporting. I wasn't there. None of us were. I don't even know if trusting everything that the witnesses were saying is true. I'm not saying that they're lying either. The knife situation. I looked at it as the same thing as I don't know who looked it up as far as what it is in Texas, what's considered legal, but just from common sense for me, I was like, well, it's not illegal to carry a pocket knife. A lot of young guys, they carry pocket knives or hunting knives, especially depending on where they live or what their activities are, especially if they're into sports, depending on how long the blade is. I know you can kind of tell if you're at an illegal length by measuring either the blade or the entire knife based on the size of your hand. If it passes that, I mean, that's the street way of measuring that. So I don't know. So to Lamar's question or rhetorical question he asked, how will the defense spin it? I'm thinking the defense will probably go into that direction, depending on if the knife was a pocket knife or something under, within the legal length that it should be. And I think that's where they're going to lean with it. It could be like, hey, I don't know if Karmelo was into sports. That was something I was trying to find out, if he was also an athlete. I was not able to find out if he's an athlete. If somebody does have that information, please say it on stage, because I would like to know, because that could probably play into his defense also, because you might need to cut a string on something. You might need to cut open
Yes, he's an athlete. There's a picture of him with his award. Yes, he's an
okay.
athlete.
Okay, so there could be many. Okay, so that's even better. So that makes a lot of excuses or justifications, not excuses, but justifications as to why he had a knife, because I know that was going to play a role into it. They can spin it to that and try to convince however they can. But the conflict resolution here, though, that is what I think is going to be the problem. It I don't think it really matters how bad the argument could have been. It's just a matter of, how did you get to the point of stabbing someone in the heart, as they reported? Like, what let was he on top of him and he just grabbed the knife, didn't know where he was stabbing, it was just to defend himself? Was he standing there? Was there distance between them? What was it where because we've seen movies where somebody's fighting and then somebody's fighting over a knife and someone gets stabbed or somebody gets shot. Like, was it in close? Were their bodies close? Were their bodies touching? What was it? Was he at a distance? And I think this is going to play a huge role in whatever they're planning on however they're planning on defending it. Of course, the prosecution's going to have their thing on that. I can think of a million ways of how they can also make it look like what it may not be, but I can also see the defense on how they can make it look, how they can not make it look how people may assume. So this is going to be interesting to find out. But I just wanted to really touch on the knife part, in knowing, like, if he's an athlete, the defense is most likely going to swing through that and say, you know, it's not illegal there, depending on the length of the knife and the type of knife he had. Because if it's a pocket knife, okay, but if it's a hunter's knife, it may be that's going to take some convincing, because it's a hunter's knife. So we'll see. That's all.
Great point you bring up, and it is 5.5 inches is the legal length that you're allowed to use, or you're allowed to carry legally on school grounds according to Texas law.
And nobody has nobody has the knows the length of the knife or what kind of knife it is, right?
We don't know yet.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Great points.
Appreciate you.
El Hotep, Duncan, Lloyd, Michael, El Hotep.
You got to come off your mic.
Oh, he dropped. Okay.
Oh, he dropped.
Duncan.
Yes. I just wanted to say, now if the fight was mutual, I would agree that they would have to go hand to hand and fight like that. But being that he was bullied and he was and the guy was overpowering him, Austin overpowered Carmelo, and Austin was a bully. Some even said that he was intoxicated. He was on a narcotic or something like that. But I don't know that part. I'm just throwing in what I heard. That could be false. I don't know. But yeah, if it was agreed that they should fight, I would say yeah, he would be obligated to have a fist fight with him. But being the fact that he was bullied, he saw that his life was in danger and he attacked it. He attacked appropriately. Now the reason I raised my hand, Daniel, because I heard a statement when you was talking about with George Zimmerman, they were not tearing up the city, even protesting for that regard. And I stated that they had to have a protest enabled. The people had to have a protest just to get Zimmerman arrested. Without that protest, they was gonna let Zimmerman go initially. And it was stated that I made a false statement. I sent that to your DM, the CNN article in 2012. The specific date, if I must give it, it's hold on, let me go back. Well, I don't want to take up your time, but you have the article. No, actually, it's right here. It was March 26, 2012. And the article from coast to coast, protesters demand justice in Trayvon Martin's case. Now, at that time, March 26, 2012, George Zimmerman was not even charged. So we had to have a protest just to be able to have George Zimmerman arrested. And the reason I remember that so clearly because I was speaking out about it. I was driving trucks like I'm always doing, even back then. So no, I wasn't in the streets, but I was, talking to Neely Fuller, Dr. Wilson, and Gus T. Renegade. We was all on group conversations talking about how Zimmerman needed to be arrested. So I shared that to you, Dana. I would hope, please, if you don't mind, could you share it to the jumbotron? If I knew how to put it in the jumbotron, I
Yeah.
would have
Can you
been
send it
dropped
to
down.
heated? Well, I'm about to close down the space, so I'll just look at it
Okay.
afterwards. But either way,
Yes, ma'am.
that's just an article. When the verdict came in and he was found not guilty, because you could protest all day, all night. That doesn't change a verdict. So what I'm
No, no,
saying is,
no,
no,
no.
let me
What I was
talk. Let
saying,
me
you
talk. Let me talk.
okay,
Let me
okay,
talk.
okay.
I'm not talking about the protest before and then he get arrested. I'm more so speaking to the follow up. So even after he was found not guilty, It still should have been follow up through legislation, public policies. See, just because someone is found guilty or not, the fight doesn't end there. And people need to understand that. But see, people like a Ben Crump and Al Sharpton, see, they want to fill your head up and think the only thing you got to do is go out there and protest. Fuck a protest. Because you don't get shit done with a protest. The protest just lay eyes on a situation, but that doesn't mean that it's going to end up being the result that you want. That's where the paperwork come into play. And if you're not willing to, when I say you, I'm talking about people in general, not you specifically, but when you're not willing to sit up here and do the follow-up, public policy, legislation, who are your politicians to make sure this doesn't happen again, changing the laws or what have you, then that's the problem. That's where you drop the ball at. So, and I'm pretty,
Yeah, and
and I don't know
I
if he
agree with you,
was,
Dinah.
let me
And
finish. And I don't know if he was sued in civil court. I don't know, because that case was
mhm.
so long ago, but I am going to revisit that with the judge. However, I'm talking about the follow-up, but I got to move on to a couple other speakers. I got
Yeah,
to,
but I just wanted to respond real
no,
quick.
I
That's
get what
why
you're
you asked me
saying.
not to
No,
interrupt.
I get what you're
But
saying.
I don't want it to be twisted. I don't want what I'm saying to be
No,
twisted.
what you said was not
I'm
twisted.
agreeing.
It wasn't twisted.
No,
I just need to
what?
make myself more clear in what I was talking about. So I'm gonna go to
And I understand. So it got twisted.
Dana,
They
what's funny
twisted my
too, as a
words.
corollary, it's not related, but who's one of the most well known Crump acolytes and Lee Merritt as well is Jasmine
yeah,
Crockett.
figures. I want to get to Lloyd, Michael, and Shaw. And who is this you brought up here? Who's Future?
Hey, how you doing, Dana?
You brought this person up, Peter?
I just want to say, Austin.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just dropped him. I didn't
So Lloyd,
I
don't
didn't
bring nobody up
I
because
didn't
that's it. No,
I just
nobody up.
clicked it.
Yeah, Lloyd,
We're
Michael,
closing out.
and
All right,
Shaw,
fair enough.
and then that'll be it.
And Future, you didn't get to get off your troll, so unfortunately we didn't get to hear it, but maybe another time. Good luck to you.
Yeah, I just want to say that once again, we have to really take all the emotions out, all the, I can't understand. I mean, I can't even imagine how someone feels and all of that, because here's the thing. Even if this goes to trial and and Karmelo gets off, Karmelo already has early acceptance letters from multiple colleges. That means that, and apparently somebody decided to do something that's going in a split second, that's going to change his life for a very long time. I do not want to compound that that mistreatment on him and push him backwards in life when we're not even clear that a crime has been committed. We are not clear on that a crime has even been committed. And one other point, Dana, back to the very beginning of the space, somebody just brought up that they didn't charge Zimmerman for months. They didn't charge Chauvin for months. They didn't charge, Chauvin was a police officer, whole different thing. How long did it take them to charge the McMichaels? So why is it that in less than 24, and there was a videotape of the McMichaels killing Aubrey. So why did it only take a couple of hours to charge Carmelo Anthony?
Great question. I don't know. And that is a good question. And like I said, please come up on Tuesday, honey. And I'm going to steal your question tonight. And I'm going to ask the judge that same question tomorrow night when we do the show. But come on the space Tuesday night, because that's a good question. Now, I don't know if it's legalities because of that, or was it because he's a young black boy? But that's a great, great question. So, and I don't got the answer to it, but I really appreciate that question. So, like I said, I will be stealing it on my show tomorrow, and please ask that same question on Tuesday, Michael. And
Yeah, Dana, the show tomorrow is just the two of you guys, right?
the show
We
tomorrow is
can't
on
ask questions
YouTube.
or
You could catch us live on YouTube at The Real Dana. So every Monday night we do a show together on YouTube, and then Tuesday is a Judge X Space.
But on that
it was
platform, you
Duncan
can't ask
You
that
directly
can
brought
ask
questions
up.
like
direct.
this,
Well,
right?
then
It
here's
was
the
Duncan
thing.
that brought that up, by the
You
way,
got
that
you
you
can
have to
ask direct
protest. We have to.
questions in the chat on YouTube. I may not see it, but if you send in a donation, I will see the question attached to the donation. That's how that works. So yeah.
Okay,
So
so Dana,
Gotcha.
one quick question because I do my spaces on Tuesdays and Thursdays. What time is your space on Tuesday?
Tuesdays at 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. Eastern, and it lasts for
Nine
three
Eastern. So
hours.
that so that's 8 o'clock Central.
Yes, and it lasts three
Okay,
hours.
I'm going to do my space. I'll cut my space short so that I can go into that one. That's
Okay,
cool.
that'd be cool.
Yeah, Lloyd, you don't want to miss the judge. He's a man among
Yeah,
boys
and
in
and
the
and
legal
I,
Oh,
field.
I've
I
It's amazing.
interacted with the
and then
judge
probably get the
before.
arguing a little. Lord probably
I
gonna push
the
back a little bit, but because sometimes this because the judge he's gonna talk about the law, he don't talk about the feelings of it. So he probably gonna piss some people off. I don't know. But I like your questions. There's some good valid questions, and questions that I would want answers to as well. So
Well,
um
there was a little exchange years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. There was a little exchange between me and him. Only happened one time, but he did have the heart to say, "You have a point."
okay, well, yeah, that's great. All right, so I want to go to Michael and Shaw, and then that's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the topic of the schools like failing everybody. Like, I mean, like, think about this, and not just this situation here with these two boys. Even since the school shootings happened, like, what has been done to protect these little kids at school? You know what I'm saying? I know some high schools in Jersey and New York, people had to go through metal detectors. Why are, like, in this day and age, why is that not implied? Why are they not hiring more security guards? Maybe some retired army people, veterans that could, be at the front, at the front of the school, protecting people from coming into school. My whole thing, man, with this is just that change needs to be done, man, to that law, to the schools, to everything in this situation. And that's just all I wanted to say, that we just need to make a change on the laws in the schools and everything.
Appreciate that. And Shaw.
Yes, thank you, uh, Dana and Pete. I just want to say in closing, how can the court system intellectualize violence when you are in fear of your life, and especially a 70-year-old? So my question is also, if he had not defended himself while standing his ground, would he still be alive? And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
And tell me your name one more time.
Shay Mashawn.
Shay
Yeah, but
Mashawn.
you know
Shay,
you
Shay,
can say
Shay
Shay
Mashawn.
Dana. Yes, you could say Shay
Shay.
Dana.
Okay, thank you. And I was saying Shy, but it's Shay Mashawn. So short for Shay. Okay, Shay, Shay, Shay. All right, listen. Great speakers. I really appreciate everybody. Everybody on YouTube. Shout out to everybody on YouTube. And we're
Dana, do we hear from King Tremaine? He's on the
who?
stage as well.
Oh, I didn't
King
know. I
Tremaine.
didn't. I'm sorry.
King
Go ahead.
Tremaine, you have the
I'm
floor.
sorry.
Yeah, put
King
on my
Tremaine,
cane.
King, honey.
you got to come off your mic
King, honey. I got
or
to get
come
back
off
to
your mute.
watching 1923. Okay.
Oh, he dumped. He
Okay,
dropped
yeah.
down.
So, like I was saying, great speakers. I appreciate everybody that came up to speak. I appreciate what everybody had to say. Everybody listening, everybody on YouTube, love you guys, and we'll be back. Judge Space on Tuesday on X, and check me out on the YouTube at The Real Dana as well. Me and the judge do a live on Mondays, and I have a video that's premiering right now with my first panel with Men's and Sway Me and Julio, and we're talking about the white South Africans, should they benefit off the Civil Rights Act here in America because Trump want them to come here. So that was a really great conversation. So go to The Real Dane on YouTube now, and I will see you on YouTube also tomorrow night on Monday, and you will see the judge on X Space Tuesday at 9 p.m. And closes Peter. Thank you, Peter, as always. So go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. This is a really great space. I really enjoyed the conversation and the individuals that came up to speak. And I'm excited to hear what the judge has to say tomorrow and Tuesday, and to continue the conversation and coming up with solutions and continuing to grow, and learning from each other. So I'm excited for it, here for it. And yeah, Dana, have a great rest of your night, and as well as all the speakers who are on the panel and spoke. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate you. We got to talk about, honey, you on the contract. Ain't no freelancing. You doing a lot of freelancing with the co-host thing.
You know you have my heart. You always have my heart.
I need documentation. I need signatures. So
So
I got
crazy.
all right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.